Okay, hi everyone. Clear FX on crypto here again. Okay, so yesterday was exciting. Bitcoin broke through its 20,000 mark and is making some excellent moves since yesterday and still making those moves today. So I thought I'd put together a video that I always say to remember that the answer lies in the lines, the support and resistance lines and the trend lines. So I've drawn up some trend lines and support and resistance lines, trajectory lines that I've portrayed or projected out to, because there's no reference. We've now broken the previous high in 2017, so there's no reference to go back to. So now we have to rely, totally on lines, totally on what it's done in the past, where it will go to, possibly in the future. So, with that in mind, I'll start with the day chart here. And then I'll zoom in into the 4 hour and the 1 hour and maybe even the 15-minute to show you my thought patterns here. And then I'll back out again all the way out to the weekly and the monthly chart to show you where I got my lines from to begin with. Okay? So we're now on the day chart. And let's see, should I draw some lines here? Sure, why not? So here is the area. I mean, this was the trend line here. I'm gonna actually, let's do this. I'm gonna zoom out just a bit, something like that. So back here in September, it was following along. Basically, it was accumulating here for a period, and then it started on this track upward toward 20,000. So once it broke this 12,000 area, 12,500, 300, 12,500 area, 12,3. Yeah. Once it broke that, it began a trajectory up toward, and I said in one of my previous videos that it would go for the 20,000 landmark, if for lack of a different word, because that's where the high 2017 was, and there's really nothing after this point. There's really no strong resistance to stop it from going to that 20,000 mark. So we can see that's exactly what it did. It just marched up. It had a few little stops on the way, but that's totally natural. Marched all the way up and almost got to it. Did a bit of a retrace, and then went and hit it again and actually poked just above, higher than the previous 2017 high. Just poked above it. Then fell back again. I thought it would take a little longer to go along here, but it didn't. Bitcoin has a lot of power in it now, telling me that there's a lot of institutional money flowing into it, huge amounts. So it decided to break 20,000 right here, and that's where we were yesterday. And what a beautiful, strong, big candle that it did. And now we're still in this one today, and it also is a strong move. So here's my line of thought. So I drew out. I had this trend line here drawn out. You guys have, if you watch my other previous videos, you know this trend line became a support line when it broke out here, and I drew it out from this point to this point, these 3 points here, and pulled it all the way out, and it gave me a targets. And sure enough, it went up to a certain point, came back to hit that trend line that I already had drawn, hit it again, actually broke through it a little bit, which is why I was thinking it might take a little longer to do the breakthrough 20,000, but then it just reversed right away, and away it went. Now today I have added a higher point trend line off of these points and pulled it out, and I also added a middle line which follows. Basically, if you break, you'll see when I break it down to the 4 hour and 1 hour, you'll see where it's following. But it's following points where it hit and came back, it broke through and then came back and hit. and then broke through, went up, and then, and so on and so forth. So now we're looking at the day. Now if I just squish this down on the day chart, we'll see, and move it out here, we'll see that I have it projected all the way out to this point where these other resistance lines in pink are. And this takes me to the date of end of, well, it's actually crossing right here, the high point in March, middle of March. Or we could say here it might poke through. So we're looking at, you know, between the end of February and middle of March is where those lines intersect these other resistance lines. And I'll show you later, when I said we back out to the weekly and the monthly, I'll show you later where those lines came from. So now, that's the day chart. So now we're going to take a look at what's going on here more immediately. We're going to break it down to the 4 hour. So we'll take a look at the 4 hour. And we can see, here's this pink line is the 20,000 that it broke through. It's now support. I'll change it to blue later, but for now, just for visual, you can see where it is. Okay, that's the 20,000 that it broke through, or very close to 20,000. So we can see the 4 hour, it's just marching, and it has a very definite trajectory. Okay. And now today, we're 17th today, here where I am. So that was the 16th that did that. And we're now on the 17th, which starts here. And it has done, and so now it's a little tiny bit of a pullback. Nothing to be concerned about at all right now. All right, now we're just going to go to 1 hour. And here's that pullback. You can see that pullback here. So now you see a little bit more how I drew these lines out. So what I did is I joined, here's the bottom here. So I joined it from the bottom area. Pardon me, this is the one here. These points here, 1, 2, 3, and then these bottoms. And then I took it to this point here. So I just drew these this morning. And that gives me a reference on the 1 hour chart as to where things are going. And then of course what I did is I copied it and did a parallel from this line here and from this bottom here. And that gives me basically a little area, not a definite line, but a little area to watch out for. Actually, I think, let's go down to the 15-minute here. Yeah, okay, so I didn't draw these two this morning, sorry. I did some other work. These ones I've had drawn since it broke through here and did this little pattern here and then here. So I drew these lines and pulled them out somewhere in this area to see what to watch for. Okay, so not this morning. I did these yesterday. So as I started here where the pullback was, and I just was looking for points that would also touch this line, which is, there's points here, and then it broke through, came back, and there's a point here, and that pulled the line way out here. And sure enough, when the price continued to move, it did find a pullback, and it went right to this line. So I keep saying the answer is in the lines. The power is in the lines, the support, resistance, and the trend lines. You learn how to use these lines, and if you're a trader, I'm not a trader, I'm an investor, so these lines are super accurate for me, but very good for a trader to, every trader needs to know these lines and understand them. Then I drew another line just to give me an area, a sense of an area. And remember, I drew these yesterday. All this here part wasn't even here. So I basically drew this line probably when we were around here somewhere, I think, or maybe even here at this high point, trying to figure out where it might pull back to. So, what did I do? I don't know. So then I drew another line to give me an area from this point, and I was looking for other points for it to hit, and this was another an obvious little tiny channel here, and it hit that. And the way I got that is I zoomed into, well, I am on the 15 minutes, so that's where I got that. So it gives me an area. And now, so we are still following this trend line beautifully right now. Nothing's changed from yesterday. We still have strong, strong upward motion. So now I'm going to back out, and I'm going to show you where these other lines came from, these green lines here. Okay, and this here. And what has happened now, or what's going on now. Okay, so let's just back out again. And just so you keep a visual, I'll back out to the hour. There's those lines. Here's where it broke above and out. And now you start to see these other lines that I drew that channel, these green ones. And you see that it was in the middle part, or the lower part here. Then it broke through that 20,000, came up to the middle one area, stalled a little bit, then broke through, and to this area a little bit, and then broke through, immediately broke through. Okay? And in doing so, it established a new trajectory. Because if it had just gone up to here and then bounced back, it likely would have come back down to at least this middle, and then it would have been on a different trajectory. But because it broke through, it's establishing a different trajectory. So that's this, it's following this trajectory now. Okay? So now we'll back out to 4 hour. And so there's the 4 hour. You still see those lines, but you get a bigger picture. And here's these 3 green lines that I have drawn. Okay? So you get to see how it's kind of respecting the middle line, how it's respecting here, it's respecting this line. It broke through a little bit here, but if I zoom out, you'll see how it respected all these from this point to here. Then it broke through this middle line, kind of floundered around here, then broke through that line to the top line, respected it here, respected here, respected here, then broke down here, all the way down to the bottom of this channel. So when I say this channel, I'm talking about this area here. Whoops, I lost my, okay, this channel. But it broke down, respected it here, then came all the way back up, broke a little bit of a pause here, and then broke through that middle line again. And this is where it just again hit the 20,000 and then broke off a little bit. Broke through a little bit here, like I was saying. That's what made me think it might continue further. But instead, it came right back into the channel and then zoomed straight up to the top of the channel and broke right through that channel too. So right now, if it stands, if it holds this new trajectory, that's what we're going to look at today. That for a more immediate price target, and also if it breaks back out of this channel, this new trajectory, where is a little bit further out, a couple of months price target. Excuse me. So let's now let's zoom out to, I'm going to get rid of this guy here. Oh yeah, I got 2 of them. Let's get rid of that one too. So now let's zoom out to, let's go back to the day. Keep zooming out. So now you get a little bit better picture of where these lines are drawn from. So this is the brand new trajectory here. Those 2 little lines. This was the trajectory it was on. This whole area here, after it broke out above the 12,300, 12,400 area. It set a new trajectory, which was here, all this area, all the way up to the 20,000 mark. Then, so I carried all those lines out, okay? That was that trajectory. But then it powered through and broke above. We're on the day chart, so we're still on this candle. So we have to wait for this day to close and tomorrow to see where it opens and where it closes, and that will determine whether it's now staying on this trajectory that it's on right now. In other words, it broke out of this trajectory and went into a much steeper trajectory. Now, keep in mind, the steeper trajectory, the shorter the time that it can sustain that, okay? So if it keeps this trajectory, it makes sense that it really can only hold it for a week, really at most, before it breaks down. Because that's a long time when you're on a super steep trajectory. It's almost vertical, right? So, but it really shows some incredible strength. So now I'm going to, so you have this trajectory, it was on that one for a while, then it broke out of it and is now on this super steep trajectory right here. And if it, so what I'm saying is, and I'm going to back out and show you, so don't forget, I'm going to back out and show you where I get these other lines from, these lines here. But if it stays sustained onto this trajectory, then this is the point where it will go for a target. And that target is basically around 32, or possibly, we'll say 32 to possibly 34. But if it does not stay on this trajectory, like say it goes like another 2 days and then breaks down, it falls out of that trajectory, where is it going to go? That's where these lines come back into play. They're out of play now, but they come back into play if it breaks out of this trajectory. Okay? So now, and then in that case, then you're looking at a longer period of time before it reaches the same target here. And that longer period of time takes us into March, end of February, March, thereabouts. So now I'm going to go back out even further to the weekly and the monthly, and I'm going to show you where I got these lines from. Okay? What you do is you use previous history reference points. So the longer you have a chart, the longer you have the history of the chart, and the more data you can get that goes back even further, then the better. So I go back, let's see the weekly here, and you'll see that this line, these two lines, they're basically touching this tip. This is 2017, and they're touching this high, then the highest high, and then the next high where it came, it dropped back down and then came back up and tried to surpass the 2017 high, but didn't succeed. Okay. And the reason why I'm using 2 is because it gives me an area. I don't have a hard line. Like I don't have a hard line of 34,000, and that's it. That's where it's going to go to. But this gives me an area of a target of between 32,000 and 34,000, which gives you a better judgment of things when it gets near that. Okay, so where did this line come from? Well, I went back to the previous. Remember, Bitcoin works on a 4-year cycle, the halving, what's called the halving. And so every halving creates new momentum. And so the previous halving, like right now, we just had a halving in May of 2020. So if we go back to April 2020, March, April, May. Yeah, I think it was on May 20th or somewhere around there. So we had the halving happen around here, around this area here. And usually momentum starts to build before the halving. And then of course, this was COVID. So COVID changed everything. But it still came right back in to do what it is. It started building momentum before the halving. And then, of course, you have this huge takeoff. And that's what happened in 2017. Or 2016. There was the halving in 2016. So you go back to 16, and that was somewhere down, where are we here? yeah, 16 spring. So it started building momentum, and then it took off again in 2017. So every halving creates an event. So I took, and prior to this halving, there was a halving in 2012. So this particular chart doesn't have enough data to go back to 2012, but that's when the halving was, the very first halving. And you can't really see it because it's just so tiny, but there is a slight upward trend on that. There's building momentum, and then come end of 2013, it really started gaining momentum, and then it went and did its high. So if we go back here, I'll pull it out here. So there it is there. That was the very first. After the very first halving, this was the very first extreme rise in price. And then, of course, you have 2017 was the second extreme rise in price. And now we're in 2020, and we're experiencing, or just beginning, the third extreme rise in price. Okay, so that's where I got my two lines from, was from these high points. And this one was actually higher. It poked up a little higher, so I chose that one. And then it came back down, and then it came back up to try and meet that again, but it didn't succeed. So I took the next highest, and that's this one. And then, of course, I run those out to that super high, or that extreme high, to this extreme high, and that other second high to this second high. And that gives me, and then that you just keep pulling it out and pulling it out and pulling it out, and maintaining that they keep in touch with those, and that gives you targets. Okay? And beyond that, one of my other videos, I talk about these faded out blue lines here. And what they are is basically, there's a tool over here called, I can't remember the name of it now. But anyway, basically, those are a copy of the previous 2017 move, and just copied them and then paste them over to give me that a sense of the target. And you can see that from here, it just continues on up to, and that's where I got that 300,000 from. That's one way. In my previous video, one of my previous videos, I show another way too, and it comes out to basically the same thing, between 250 and 300,000. But those are long term. And when I say long term in cryptocurrency world, I'm talking a year and a half, a year to 2 years. So we're in December now of 2020, so December 21 and maybe a little beyond, that's those targets, those great big high targets. Right now we're just looking for more immediate targets to give us a sense of what to do and how to react to things. And as an investor, it keeps me calm, knowing these things, because I trust my lines, and I trust my support and resistance lines and trend lines, and it gives me a sense of calm. Not to worry if there's a bit of a pullback, no problem, right? So I just wanted to, I'm just going to get this back to, well, actually I'll go to the month first before I close here. And we'll just pull this out here like this. So this is, and this gives you a sense, I'll do this here like that, and pull it all the way to here. And then shrink this down a little bit just to kind of give you a sense. Actually, we'll make that a little thinner. There we go. So that's from this point, these points, to that point, and now we can see that it makes sense to have this, that it's going to go to 30, 32, 33, 34. You know, easily, it could do it now if it stays on the trajectory, but easily in a month or a couple of months. Easily. Okay? So that keeps me calm. When I zoom back down, or zoom back into the lower time frames, the 4 hour and the 1 hour, and it's doing a bit of a pullback, you know, it's gone this high and it pulls back, I'm not worried about it. I know it's just a a slight pullback or a correction, and it will continue on its move up. One way or another, it'll either continue following this trajectory line, or it'll break through it, back out of it, and follow this trajectory line. Either way, this tells me where it's heading, okay? A more immediate picture. The other thing I wanted to talk to everybody about was this thing called the RSI. That's this little graph down at the bottom here. RSI. Interestingly, I can't remember what RSI actually stands for, but it's an excellent little tool to use. You don't want to, I don't use it all the time, and a lot of times I just leave it out of the picture, but it is a good tool to use. On the monthly, we can see over here highs. If you look over here, when I scroll here, you'll see, yeah, let me do this. Look over this area here. Okay. You'll see that it hit, when it started making moves on the monthly, it hit highs of 86, and then it moved on up to another high of 94 before it back down, and then it continued on high up again, 91, all the way up to 96 when it hit the peak in 2017. Where are we now? We are sitting at 77, and that's the monthly chart. So we have now it could back down, it could break down and come back down to, who knows, like 68 or even lower, maybe all the way back down to the 50, because this is a fresh break, so it can do that. But we're only at 77, so it has a long ways to go, because the history shows that it makes above 90, 94, 95, 96. If we look at the weekly, we can see much the same thing. 2017, on the way up, it was hitting highs of 90, 81, 84, and again 90. So where are we now? Well, it's been hitting, it just broke above the 50 here, 59, and then it crawled along there, then it hit another one of 69, almost 70. Then she came back down, and then she just took off here, and it has been steadily climbing the RSI to 84, 84.50 again, and now it's sitting at 87. So on the weekly chart, oops, okay, let's get rid of that. On the weekly chart, okay, I gotta remember to hit this button here. On the weekly chart, it may be nearing its 90 point, but it's so strong. That's what I look at. Is this move is so strong that before it finishes and hits 90, or maybe even above 90, it's going to go quite a ways yet before it might tire out. That's the weekly. Now, if we look at the day, we are now sitting at, we have 79. A high of 84, 84, and we're now at 76. So ways to go yet. Now if we shrink this down and look at previous high points, and that's without any strength really behind it. There is strength to move it up, but previous high points of 80, 65, then she broke down, so that's not a real strong move, but it's above the 200 here. So you look at this one here, we're looking at 82, 85, and of course we're looking at where we were. So it's got some move yet. That's what I see, is that it's got some move yet. So it could very well stay in this trajectory all the way up to that point. But like I say, now you know where these lines came from. If it does break out of this trajectory, I'm not worried about it. It might pull back down to somewhere on these lines. It might touch this line again. But it will, if it doesn't stay in this trajectory and make it to there within the next, what is that, week, December 23rd, then if it breaks out here, no problem. If you're not in Bitcoin yet, no problem. You break down, wait till it comes down to here, and then buy in again, or buy, and she'll take off, and almost guaranteed. By end of February, early March, it's going to be up around 32 to 34,000. Okay, guys. So just wanted to put that together for you so you have an idea where I get the lines from, and help you to stay calm, not to panic about things. Especially if you're on the lower time frames, like the hour. You see a pullback, don't freak about it. You're in this for the long term, right? You should be in Bitcoin for the long term. And when I say long term, I'm talking a year to 2 years from now. That's long in crypto world. So, and that's when you should be, coming into December next year, that's when you should be considering getting out of it and, getting to something else, or pull it out into cash, or whatever you want to put it into, real estate or something like that. Yeah, because as we know, once it's made its extreme high, once it's made its extreme high, it does it every time. It's proven to do it at least 1-2 times before. It hits an extreme high, but then it falls right back. Okay, but every time it falls to a new low, it's much higher than the previous low, right? And so that's what it'll do here. So it will find its high maybe by next December 21, and then it will crash. It will fall, but where will it fall to? Will it fall back to 20,000? No, not likely. It'll never see 20,000 again. It might fall to 60,000. It might fall to 80,000. We don't know, or it might fall, here we go, to all the way to 43, or as you can see where this line goes, it might do that. Not likely, probably about 60,000 or so. But still, and make a new low and start all over again. But that new low of 60,000 is a lot higher than the low of 3,000 or whatever it was way back here. So, and that's the way it is with Bitcoin. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to do a quick little blurb for you, so you get an idea of where or how I get my lines and what I'm looking at now. All right. So just remember, guys, it's in the lines. The answer is always in the lines. Learn how to use them. Learn how to draw them. Yeah. So happy trading. Well, I should say happy investing, because that's what I am. And remember, the answer is in the lines. And if you like this, the videos that I make for you, hit the like button. Just give me some likes, and even subscribe would be awesome. All right. Talk to you later. Have a good day.